Hello, and welcome, everybody. My name is Faye Augustin, and I'm the Intermountain West Blue Trails Manager for American Rivers. I want to thank you again for joining us in our webinar today on the Connecting Communities to River Grants program webinar. I'm really excited to chat with each and every one of you and learn a little bit more about the projects that you're interested in today and talk more about the great funding opportunity that we have. So as always, a couple of brief kind of technical support pieces. If your connection is lost at any point during the webinar, please log in again and use your unique web link and passcode that was provided to you when you registered with GoToWebinar. And as always, our webinar is being recorded, so this will be available for you to review again or share with others in your organization that might be interested in learning more about the webinar and more about the grants program after at bluetrailsguide.org/grants. You can see that on your screen. So to ask a question, we really encourage this webinar as for you, as always, to ask any and all questions that you might have throughout the webinar. We would really appreciate all the questions that you might have, whether it's related to your specific project or to kind of just general questions about the grant program. So there is a tab on your GoToWebinar side panel where you can type in the specific questions that you have. And we would love for you to ask those questions throughout the webinar. And we'll focus, we'll spend a lot of time at the end answering specific questions that are related to the program goals and the process. And you're welcome to submit specific questions about your project. However, we are not going to get into those particular details, and you're welcome to reach out to me directly, or I'll contact you after the webinar to talk more about specific questions. So a brief agenda today, just to kind of talk about what we will be going over in the next 30 minutes. It's very much going to be an overview on the Connecting Communities to Rivers grant program. And so specifically, we'll be giving just a brief background on American Rivers and the goals of this particular program. We'll talk about eligible project location, who is eligible for the grant program, as well as those projects that are eligible and those projects that are ineligible. We'll discuss minimum and maximum grant requests and what a match might look like, as well as discuss the timeline and specific process around the grant program as well. And as I just mentioned earlier, we'll leave plenty of time for questions that you might have about the process as we move forward. So through the Connecting Communities to Rivers grant program, American Rivers is really excited to provide financial support for projects that connect communities in the Intermountain West to their hometown rivers by improving family-friendly recreational opportunities and protecting rivers and surrounding lands. So a little bit about American Rivers. American Rivers is a national nonprofit that works to protect wild rivers, restore damaged rivers, and conserve clean water for people and nature. And specifically, through our Blue Trails program, we work to connect communities to their rivers through recreation, so things like fishing, boating, as well as land-based river recreation, hiking, wildlife watching, to inspire them to see their rivers as a valuable resource that's worthy of protection. So through our work on our Blue Trails program and working with communities to create blue trails or water trails, we help communities with a step-by-step kind of guide through the process of planning and implementing a vision for improving responsible recreation and river protection. We advocate for technical assistance and financial assistance programs for communities that are interested in pursuing recreation enhancements and conservation. And we also work to create new tools and resources to help communities in their work. And so this is going to be somewhat of an interactive webinar, so you're not just listening to me talk. And I'd love to get an idea from folks on where you are and where your particular project is located. So on your screen, you should be able to see a poll that asks where you are located. So we've got Colorado, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, and Wyoming. So we'll take a couple more seconds here to get everybody's vote in to see where you all are located. All right. So as you can see, we've got a great kind of distribution. Lots of folks from Colorado here, but then a number of great folks in Montana, Idaho, New Mexico, and Wyoming. So I'm really pleased to see a great distribution of interested applicants from across the Intermountain West. So that brings us into the eligible project location. So as I just mentioned, projects are eligible projects are those that are located in the Intermountain West, which for the purpose of this grant includes Colorado, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, and Wyoming. And so for your particular project, that project must be entirely located in one of these 5 states. So those eligible entities for the Connecting Communities to Rivers grant program include nonprofit organizations, local and tribal governments, as well as for-profit entities. And the grant funding must be solely used for charitable and educational activities consistent with American River's tax-exempt status, as well as our mission and our goals. So funding will be provided for action-oriented projects that not only connect people to their rivers through recreation, but also work to establish a strong sense of river and land stewardship, as well as have a clear and identifiable community, recreation, conservation, and economic benefits. So there's 4 main project areas that are eligible, and that includes planning, outreach, and communication activities. So this includes, but is not limited to, designing and printing river maps, recreation and conservation planning, education programs, as well as community organizing, events, all of those type of things that really get to outreach with your community. The second component is recreational improvement. So this again is included but not limited to creating new or updating existing low-impact boat launches, picnic sites, river signage, all of those different components around recreation. The third piece is protection efforts. So this includes protecting floodplains and buffers, creating new wildlife corridors, costs associated with conservation easements and acquisitions, protecting headwater streams and source drinking water, removal of invasive plants, costs associated with purchasing flows and leasing water, as well as costs around fish passage. So again, these are just examples. I'm sure there's a lot of other really great projects that could fall under this particular category. And then the final piece is collaboration between stakeholders. So this includes, partner meetings, planning exercises, those different pieces that are needed to really ensure stakeholders within your community are all working together and are on the same page. So, the examples that I just gave are just that. They are examples. This is the first year of our grant program, so I really am excited to see all of the different ideas and projects that are submitted as a part of this application. And so if you have specific questions about your project and kind of what specific area it would fall under, I encourage you to reach out to us after the webinar. And just to get an idea of kind of what types of projects are out there and what people are thinking about, we'll do another poll. So again, you should see here on your screen a poll that asks what types of projects are you thinking that you're interested in submitting applications for? And if you have, it only allows you to choose one. So if you have two different projects that you're debating between, I ask you just to choose one of them. But this does give us a really good idea of kind of the breadth of projects that folks are interested in submitting. So there's the planning and outreach, recreational improvements, protection efforts, and then collaboration between stakeholders. So we'll wait a couple more seconds here if you haven't voted yet. Excellent. And so up on the screen, you'll see there's a lot of different types of projects, which I'm really excited to see. So a number of projects from protection and recreation, as well as collaboration, and then some around outreach and communication too. So again, in our evaluation process, all of these are, weighted equally against each other. So we're really excited to see all the different projects that are submitted as a part of this application. And if you have specific questions about a project idea or a set of ideas that you have, I encourage you to reach out to us after the webinar has been completed. So along with those projects that are eligible, there are also projects that are ineligible. So ineligible projects include new dams or other stream or floodplain barriers, operation and maintenance of existing structures, as well as projects that intervene in an election, support or oppose any political party or candidate. So the minimum grant size available is $5,000, and the maximum grant size available is $25,000. And so for proposals that are requesting less than the $5,000 mark or requesting more than the maximum $25,000 mark, those projects will be rejected from the application. And we'll do one last poll here. I'd love to get a sense of the level of funding that people are interested in. How large of a proposal are you thinking about submitting? So we'll go ahead and launch this last poll. So if you would like to go ahead and submit what you're thinking. Again, if you are not quite sure, you can always click the unsure button. But if you have a general idea, we'd love to see where proposals are at in terms of their funding requests. We'll wait a couple more seconds here. Excellent. All right, so it seems like there's a good group, a nice mix of projects that are, some that are less, some that are around 15, and then a number that are above $15,000. And so we'll talk a little bit more here in a second about what that means in terms of what you'll have to show in your application depending on the level of funding that you are requesting. So for those proposals that are requesting more than $15,000, there is a match requirement. But for those proposals that are less than $15,000, maybe closer to $10,000, there is no match requirement. So those projects that are greater than $15,000, so between $15,000 and $25,000, a match of 50% of the grant is required for those requests. So there's a number of requirements that are eligible for match. And so that includes funds from foundations as well as state and federal funding sources. Match can also include in-kind services such as staff time and benefits, volunteer hours, and donated goods. And just a brief piece on that. So we will consider the use of funds for salaries, benefits, or travel that's associated with the completion of the project as a part of the grant. However, a maximum of 10% of requested funding is eligible for overhead or administrative expenses. And so just so you know, those two pieces, applicants will be scored on the proportion of funds that are going directly towards project implementation. So if you have a significant amount of funding, of the funding that's going towards you know, travel or staff salary, that might not score as highly as somebody who has a project where almost 100% of the funds are going directly towards the implementation of the project. And we've got a great explanation in our frequently asked questions on the website that goes much more into detail on the match, on kind of specifics around travel, salaries, as well as overhead or administrative expenses. So I would encourage you, if you have additional questions, to look there as well. So all applications must be received by December 1st, 2015. And an application review committee that's comprised of American River staff will evaluate proposals and make funding recommendations. So we're looking specifically at how the goals and the opportunities for each project are described in the proposal, as well as how the project fits in with the overarching objectives of the grant that work to connect communities to rivers. And our goal, we anticipate notifying all applicants regarding the status of your proposal in January 2016. And again, that deadline is December 1st, 2015 by 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And if you have questions before then, I would encourage you to reach out to myself, to an American River staff member maybe that you work closely with, to get a little bit of a better understanding if you have any specific questions. And so to access the application, the list of frequently asked questions, as well as a recording of this webinar, please visit americanrivers.org/connecting-communities, or you can visit bluetrailsguide.org/grants. So as I mentioned, I wanted to spend a really big chunk of the webinar focusing on taking specific questions. So there is a question box at the bottom of your GoToWebinar panel where you are able to ask specific questions that you have. And so we'll go ahead and open up this now. And just as always, we will have all of our questions available in transcript form and available on our website at bluetrailsguide.org/grant-questions on November 5th. So that will be 2 days from now. And then any additional questions that you have after the webinar, please reach out directly to me, and I will go ahead and show my contact information now. So you can go ahead and reach out to us here. So let's go ahead and start with a couple of questions that have come up. And again, please continue to ask questions as things come up throughout this portion of the presentation. So can you please clarify your match requirements? So a match of 50% of the grant request is required for proposals between $15,000 and $25,000. So eligible match requirements include funds from foundations and state and federal sources, as well as staff time and benefits, volunteer hours, as well as donated goods or services. And so your match must be related to the Connecting Communities to River Grant Program application, and it can only be counted once. So it can't be counted as match for another grant application as well. If you have a specific question about volunteer hours, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a great FAQ section on our grant website, bluetrailsguide.org/grant, that really goes into a very specific and detailed breakdown of how to count the match. The next question is looking at some more clarification on ineligible projects. So they're interested in submitting a proposal that would use funds to go towards riverfront expansion and a revitalization project. And it includes a number of different components, including building an access point, signage, and developing a whitewater park. So could we apply for a grant to go towards this larger project? And I'm really excited that somebody asked this question because I think that it gets to two important points that I want to make sure are really clear to everybody over the phone. So in terms of what parts of this project are eligible, so the funds that would be requested can be used to go towards the building of the access point as well as signage. However, funds from the grant program are not eligible to go towards the design, the development, or implementation of a whitewater park. So please also keep in mind that if you are looking to fund a larger project like this, and you're interested in using some funds from the Connecting Communities to River Grants program, that all funds from the project that you are proposing must be spent by December 31st, 2015. So you can show to us in your application how the funds would be used in the specific area of the larger project, and then just demonstrate that those funds are completed by December 31st, 2015. Then another question that we've got is a little bit more clarification on the actual process of the proposal. So for folks that are interested in submitting something as kind of a larger coalition, part of the stakeholder building section of the grant, the question is asking if all of the applicants should be part of the application and how are funds distributed. So we ask that all projects have just one lead applicant. So if you're working with a coalition, I just ask that you choose one group or stakeholder to apply, and that particular organization will receive the money. And then if it makes sense, you're welcome to redistribute it at that point. And that one group that is on the application is responsible for reporting back to American Rivers. And you're welcome to include letters of support from other coalition members as a part of the application. But again, we just ask that there's just one member, one sole group that is on the application specifically. So we've got another question that is just getting a little bit more clarification about when the funding would be available. When would the funding be available, and what are the requirements for when a project needs to be completed? So I got to this a little bit in an earlier question, but I just want to be sure that it's clarified. So American Rivers is expected to notify all applicants of their status by mid-January 2016, and then all of the funds that you receive must be completed by December 31st, 2016. So it's almost a year long. And again, we'll notify applicants in mid-January 2016, and then all funds must be reported back on spent by December 31st, 2016. Sorry, I think I might have said 2015, but I meant 2016. Sorry, guys. Thank you. The next question that we've got is another question on match. If federal funds can be used for a match for this particular grant. And yes, federal funds are a match for this particular grant. However, you couldn't use those same federal funds as a match for a different grant that you might be applying for. So it has to be very specifically matched just for the Connecting Communities to Rivers grant. The next question that we've got is, what is the total amount of funds that are available in this grant round? So we've got $100,000 to submit, to distribute as a part of this grant round. And again, applications are welcome between $5,000 and $25,000. And I would really encourage people to kind of think broadly about you know, how much money they specifically need for projects, and just kind of how you can demonstrate the need for your specific project as it relates to the goals and objectives of this grant program, but also as it relates to kind of the larger mission that, that you have as an organization or as an entity. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions. And we've got a question about one last piece about asking if they wanted to start if they wanted to purchase gear for a particular river, a river trip, if that would be eligible. And at this point, I think that that might be a question where we would want a little bit more information about what types of river trips you're providing, if they're for education groups or otherwise. That would be a question where I would ask that you reach out to me directly, and we can chat a little bit more specifically about the grant program that, the grant application that you're interested in submitting and how those funds would be used. So with that, there's a lot of really great other questions that have come up, and so I want to thank you guys for submitting all the questions that you have thus far. And we will, as I mentioned before, have a full list of all of the questions and answers available on the website, bluetrailsguide.org/grant by November 5th. So that's this Thursday, November 5th. Questions answered as well as a recorded copy of this webinar will be available for review. So with that, I want to thank all of you for joining us and for joining me to go through the Connecting Communities to Rivers grant program. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work and learn more about all of the great projects and ideas that you have. So please reach out directly if you have more specific questions. Again, my contact information is on the screen. So you're welcome to reach out, give me a call, 303-454-3396, or you can send me an email if that's easier, connecting@americanrivers.org. And I really look forward to hearing from each and every one of you and seeing what great project ideas you have coming up. So just a reminder, December 1st, 2015, applications are due by 5 p.m. and you will submit them to connecting@americanrivers.org. And that grant applicants will be notified whether or not they receive funds by the middle of January 2016. And those applicants that do receive funds, those funds all must be spent by December 31st, 2016. So thank you again for joining us and for taking time out of your morning to participate in this webinar. Please feel free to reach out with any other questions you might have. But thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I look forward to talking and working with each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day.